Okay, I think we can get started. My left, welcome, Frank. Frank, you can.
Okay, Jimson, thanks very much indeed. My name is Frank Dick. I guess I'll know most of you out there. Huge privilege for me to be introducing this today, but what's my role in all of these things? Well, I guess I'm two things as far as what we're doing now is concerned. President of the European Athletics Coaches Association, which is hosting our session today, and also the chair of the Global Athletics Coaching Academy. Now, for many of you, you'll wonder what is that? Well, just in a very quick summary, Sebastian Coe, the president of World Athletics, had a vision that we would create a body from the coaching community dedicated to all athletics coaching related matters. That means education, regulation, support, and representation, and to facilitate bringing about necessary change. So this is a huge step forward. And the underpinning of Global Athletics Coaching Association is the community of coaches in the world. And that community is you. It's the coaches associations. Now, up to very recently, we'd kind of fallen to the wayside with a couple of associations. So we had we only had EACA, Europe, NACATCA, North America, Central America, and Caribbean, and ASIA, the South American Coaches Association. But since then, Oceania has reestablished itself, and I'm going through conversations in Asia to regionalize the Asia Coaches Association in the first instance to at least get things on the ground, and from that to build the Asia Coaches Association. Everybody in these associations has created a coaches club. Now, where did that idea come from? Well, part of GACA's remit is to create a World Athletics Coaches Club every time there's a World Athletics Championships. And World Athletics has gone 100% behind this, so that as of 2025, any country who wishes to host a World Championships will have to make available a facility for the World Athletics Coaches Club. And the world we're in today, it doesn't just have to be on the spot, on site as a club. We can make it a virtual one. And that's what pulled us all here together today. Because starting with Oceania and then sweeping through all of these other areas, they have created their own version of a virtual athletics coaches, virtual area athletics coaches club. What we've got is one that's been pulled together brilliantly by my dear friend, Giacomo Galetto. Now, he's done a fantastic job in a very short period of time to have our club meet every evening, same time as tonight, but throughout the entire games. So thank you and congratulations, Giacomo, for your hard work in this. May I extend a huge welcome to all panelists who are all very close friends of mine over these next days. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate you're all very busy people, and I'm really looking forward to learning through your expertise and through your experience about the lessons that we are learning from these games. May I also welcome all coaches joining. Well, in any great enterprise, you need a superstar who will conduct the orchestra and all things. And it's my huge privilege to introduce someone who now is going to be central to how we move forward with European Athletics Coaches Association. Ladies and gentlemen, my privilege to introduce to you, Jimson Lee.
Great, thanks, Frank. Thanks for the introduction. I'm really excited for these next 8 or 9 days. It's going to be a lot of fun, very informal, and I hope everyone learns a lot from this sessions. I think the first thing we want to do is introduce our panelists. And the first person, I think we have only one online now, and that's Gunter Lange. Gunter, welcome. So Gunter is the world leader in endurance events, coaching and high performance, and strategic planning. He's now the Ugandan Special Presidential Assistant in Education Sport. So Gunter, welcome. Yeah. So he's on mute. So you're on mute, Gunter. Hang on. Gunter, hang on, is it Gunter? Gunter, hang on, you're on mute.
Gunter, you're on mute. Can you unmute yourself?
That's a good idea, Frank. That's a good idea. Jimson, my humble request is please the pronunciation of my German name, Gunter. Gunter is a male duck. I know can make sound like a male duck, but just call me Gunter or Günther, but not Gunter.
Okay, excuse my Canadian accent.
No, thanks for the welcome, and it is my privilege to be with you, and really excited for the coming sessions, and I look forward to learn from you.
Okay, great. So before we get to say the 10,000 meters, I want to introduce Sean Pickering, who happens to be in Tokyo right now, and I think he has a lot to share of his experience. Sean, welcome.
Thank you, Jimson. I think Gunter and we run into each other a couple of times already so far in the stadium. So not very many people in the stadium, so it's easy to spot someone running around in a yellow Ugandan uniform. So yeah, a couple of us are still here in Tokyo.
Great. So I think while you're here, because I know it's 2 o'clock in the morning Tokyo time, and if you have to drop off, we all understand and get ready for tomorrow. Let's talk about the men's discus tonight, the men's final. How was that? Any thoughts on how that went?
Yeah, I was privileged to be sitting alongside my friend and Viestin Hafsteinsen, who coached the two Swedish athletes, the first and second. So Viestin was also the coach to the 2008 Olympic champion, and so for him to come back and do it again, and it's been a 10-year journey with Daniel Stahl, who was a young big kid that a lot of talent, and it just shows you got to put a lot of work in, and it is the 10-year plan. And interestingly, Simon Pedersen, the guy that finished second, started about 7 or 8 years ago, and he was a decathlete that came as a junior decathlete that was pretty good in the discus, tall, skinny kid, and thought that he might have a future in discus throwing, and came to be a part of the group with Viestin, and Daniel was 1 or 2 years into the group, and yeah, done a great job. So pleased for both of them. Very good competition. Daniel was under a lot of pressure because he's been the favorite. He won the world title. He's won pretty much all of his competitions except one loss to Simon this year. So for him, anything other than gold was a failure, and the pressure therefore was on. I don't think he threw particularly well, but the whole goal of the training for Daniel was to be better than anyone else on his worst day, and that's just to bring the average up. And so he had an average day, and an average day for Daniel is good enough to win the competition. So, yeah, I'm pleased for Lucas Weisheidinger of Austria also come through with a bronze medal. So very interesting competition, some good results, but very pleased for the two Swedes. It's a special day in Sweden.
It's great to hear. So I've heard a lot of stories about when the athletes got into the village. I know Team USA arrived 5 days prior to their event, and some teams were a bit earlier. How did they take care of the facilities? Like, I saw some pictures of the weight rooms, and how do they prepare the final week of tapering?
The main thing is that the agreement with the Olympic Association and the organizing committee was that no facilities would open up further than 5 days ahead of the event. So the swimmers, they opened up 5 days ahead of their events. Track and field, therefore, opened up 5 days before the first day. They opened up on the 25th. The Jamaicans turned up on the 23rd and wondered why they couldn't train. They couldn't go to the track. They couldn't go to the warm-up track. They couldn't throw because they weren't informed, or their management didn't inform them that nothing opened up till 5 days before. It's very strict protocols here. You come in no more than 5 days before, and every athlete is gone within 48 hours of their event. So we had one of my athletes I was here working with lost out in the didn't qualify in the discus yesterday and went home on a flight today. So everyone is moving in and out. It's been very tough. Some of the teams chose to come in and do a holding camp, and controversially, the Americans, they canceled their holding camp about a year ago as soon as COVID hit. And I think that's not, personally, I don't think that's working out well for them. They came in about 5 or 6 days before the first events. They have a very good setup here in Tokyo with a training facility, but 5 or 6 days with a 12-hour time change doesn't work so well for the period in the middle. First couple of days, you're okay. And after about day 7 or 8, you're okay again. But we had that with our holding camp. You saw everyone go down for 2 or 3 days and then come back up again before their coordination came back. And I think you're seeing that with some of the American performances, not just in track and field, also in other sports. The swimmers were a bit off. Everyone that followed this, Americans followed this policy of basically coming in 5 or 6 days before, and I think it may bite them on the backside a little bit.
So one last question before we move on to the 10,000 meters. How is the COVID fear handled right now? Ever since Sam Kendrick's test positive, and because there's no television, no TVs in each of the rooms, I heard the only place to watch the Olympics is either on your phone, smartphone, or on the first floor with a group of
There are COVID protocols in place by the Japanese government, and they're the first and they're the most important things. And we knew about this signing up when we came in, and those are very strict, and they're also different in different districts. So Tokyo has its own rules. We were in Yokohama, and so therefore we were responsible to the Yokohama area. The British team came in, and we had, in fact, I was one of the people that first got pinged. When we traveled over with basically a large part of the British team, we were on a flight with British Airways, and although we followed all tremendous COVID protocols ourselves, we were tested 96 hours before, 72 hours before. We were basically being tested 14 days in advance. We were told not to mix with people, and then we turned up and got on the plane, and there were some of the passengers sitting amongst the athletes. And there was one, I was in seat 41D, and 41A, B, and C were occupied by members of the general public. And luckily, because they saw I was squeezing into 41D, the cabin staff moved me and put me in a slightly bigger seat. But those passengers in those three seats, one of them turned up positive. And the Japanese rules are anyone within 3 rows, not within 2 meters, but 3 rows of that person has to go into 14-day isolation. So that was the first rule, and that was just a contact trace, 14-day isolation. So we had a number of athletes, 6 athletes, that were immediately put into isolation. They didn't know if they were going to be able to train. They didn't know if they were going to be able to compete. There was lots of discussions going on because this was one of the first cases that happened with, talking with the Japanese government and the organizing committee. They maintained their 14-day isolation period, but the athletes were allowed out to train. They had to have special cars. They had to have, we could train with them as long as we were over 2 meters away. But that was the only time they were out of their rooms. And we were lucky we were in a nice hotel. And so, they were bringing food up, but they had a very tough, some of them had a very tough time of it. And one of the things that noticeable in our first couple of days of competition here, those athletes that were just in that isolation have not done very well. We had a girl in the 400 hurdles, fell over before the first hurdle. We had a guy in the steeplechase, finished dead last. Girl in the shot put that was expected to do well, and they came into the village one day before, but had to stay in isolation. And then the rules that you're talking about are anyone that tests positive, like Sam Kendricks did. So what happens is that all those people that are considered close contacts have to be tested, and so they are put into isolation straight away, and they are tested, and if they test negative, they were allowed out of isolation. There were a lot of worried people. The Australian team had to go into isolation, some of the Americans, and then everyone is judged on its own merits in its own cases. When we arrive in the country, we have to turn on an app on our phone. That's a contact tracing app. We're all tested every day with a saliva test, and that maintains whether people are negative. But if you're considered a close contact of someone that tests positive, that may show up on your phone. And a close contact is considered within 2 meters, without a mask, and there are certain mitigating circumstances that are taken into place. So, for example, pretty much our athletes were all double vaccinated. That was seen as a positive thing, but there's some discussions about whether people were vaccinated and whether they're then seen as a higher risk, and they would be put into, those that are in the village are then put into a hotel, and some of these hotels, as is most hotels, I'm in a pretty typical Japanese hotel here. There's not a lot of space. You're only going to get Japanese television. So, yeah, it's not like in the village where you've got a little more space and a lot more things happening. And the rules are very strict. You are held in isolation. You can only travel under special single cars. And we were kept in, it was funny, when we were training in our holding camp in Yokohama, even for us to walk from the stadium where the athletes were training to our throwing field, which is about 400 meters away, we were surrounded by anything up to 8 or 10 local volunteers just to keep people away. We haven't been able to mix with anyone. We haven't been able to eat Japanese food. We just, we had our own rooms, our own floors in the hotel, and just keeping us away from the public. The Japanese government do not want to have any cases coming in from the Olympics, and so basically they're just keeping everyone away.
That's great to hear. Great for the update, and I know it's 2 in the morning, so I really I think this is insightful for a lot of people. Okay, so before we move on, we do have 2 more panelists. I want to introduce them, and then we'll get to the 10,000 meters. We have Dalton Grant. Dalton, welcome, and thanks for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And then we also have Rita Engelbrecht. Rita.
Hi, thank you.
Okay. You can turn your camera on if you like, but you don't have to, but that's fine. Okay,
let me just I'm not so used to this yet. Where do I switch the camera on?
Okay, no problem. So
there's a little camera. There's a little camera on your screen. If you press it, just press that.
There's a little camera on my screen. I've got one that says video. That's there at the top left.
That's it. Go for it.
Okay. We'll help you out. I'll try to help you online here. So Gunter, I got it right this time. So thanks for joining.
Okay.
So I want to talk about last night, the 10,000 meters. I know the whole world, I think it was, at least for sure you were rooting for Joshua Cheptegei and Jacob Kalimo. And I think it was a really exciting 10K. I know in the UK, we missed Mo Farah and all that. But so, what are your thoughts on the 10K performances? How did the team react, and any thoughts on on the race?
Thank you, Jimson. Let me start with the conditions of the race. So it was 26 degrees Celsius during the race, which sounds not too bad, but we measured, World Athletic measured during the race a peak of 88% humidity. And everybody who comes from endurance knows it is pretty difficult to get rid of your heat you produce when it is wet, because then sweating becomes quite difficult. So you could notice that during the race, as in another endurance event 2 days before, some people who obviously were not prepared on the level of thermoregulation were suffering, even with the pace of the race, which unfortunately, and we will come to this later, was not too high. But it was obviously a need to be prepared in Tokyo, not only for this whole COVID pandemic and the consequences, but also for the humidity. And I would like to recall that the athletes had to sign a document that they are aware of the risk concerning COVID and heat. I found this quite, I want to be politically correct, impressive that the athletes have to take the risk and to sign for it, especially concerning the heat. Okay, so we had a really hot and humid race. When I talk about the preparation of the Uganda team, be assured that Joshua was well prepared for the conditions of Tokyo. We have, considering that he, like quite a lot of endurance athletes, want to stay as long as possible in the altitude, and it's quite difficult to adapt in the high altitude of Uganda. There's 12 to 14 degrees to the up to 30 degrees or the 88% humidity. So we simulated that regular, and we're doing this already more than 1 year in a room which we heated and produce even close to 100% humidity. So this was an area where we were quite relaxed. I noticed personally that this is not a normal case. Most of the other teams, even the big teams, seems not to have to done anything in thermoregulation. I noticed this also in Doha when we had the midnight races, that even some of the East African teams were warming up when there was almost 30 degrees in their usual plastic jackets and trousers. So there's still some work to do to explain that endurance events and high temperature and especially high humidity don't marry. Now let's come to the race. Going into that race, we knew about our outstanding competitor Barega from Ethiopia. And to make it simple, this athlete is a world-class athlete, and especially the difference to Joshua, he's faster in the under distance. So his 1500 is 3:32, Joshua has a 3:37. And we know that if Barega is fresh as you can be after 9,600 meters, then he will kick. He can have a fast finish. So to give a number, the race was 53 seconds in the last lap of the 10,000 meter race. The strategy we prepared, the plan was that we used one of our athletes, Kisa, to go in front and to set a high pace. We were expecting that not necessarily Ethiopia, Kenya would follow, because they would understand that this is a tactical measure activity, but it was the plan that then if Kenya, Ethiopia not follow, Joshua would even go alone and use this man as a pace setter. As you have seen when you watch the race, to our surprise, the race plan was not implemented, and I saw Joshua comfortably sailing with the pack in the back of the field, even in the first 1,000, 2,300 meters. So the race was exactly that what we didn't want. It was, in brackets, slow. Means we knew Barega will come sooner than later and kick. So the last 400 meters, we had 8, 9 world-class competitor at the bell, which was an outstanding situation because we had not only the world record holder Joshua, we had the world champion Jakob for half marathon, we had Barega plus. So at 350, Barega started his kick. The second, let's say, the second error of Joshua in tactics was that he, without any major reaction, let Barega pass. I would have preferred he would have at least tried to follow. And the third one was when Joshua started his kick. it was obviously too late, because when I was on the other side at 200 as usual, and it was a good view from the side to see that Barrega was fast, but Joshua and Jakob were catching up quickly, and it was 0.4 seconds, 2 meters, finish line to concrete the third error. If Joshua would have taken his kick a little bit earlier, he was the strongest athlete on the finish line. He could have had a chance to make the gold. So reaction for me yesterday was, we lost gold, because the gold was there. It was possible for Uganda team. But I tell you frankly, this morning when I woke up, I told myself, 2 out of 3, come on, Gunter. It's not that bad. So be a little bit humble and focus on the 5,000 meter. So I had a short discussion with our 2 top athletes, and the message is, we have another option in 5,000 meter. And in 5,000 meter, I want to see they have an opportunity to show what they learned from the 10,000 meters. I think that's kind of view on the 10,000 meter from Uganda side. So
No, I think that was really good. I was really surprised there wasn't any water stations like in lane 4. They put a table with water bottles or sponges in the heat, but I guess maybe that's a COVID issue or something. But okay, well, thanks. So
Jameson, can I answer to this? Because by accident, I spoke today with the World Athletics team, which is here, the medical department, and the regulation stipulates that it is a can decision if water has to be provided. And I had the impression that the 26 degrees caused that they didn't give water. On the other hand, I tell you frankly, even with 88% humidity, don't expect that any of the top runner will leave lane 1 or lane 2 to get some water and come back into the race. Not at that level of competition.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. I mean, I was at my dentist last week and I wasn't allowed to spit into the bowl because they didn't want water vapor and fluids around. So that's how crazy it is. Anyway, no, that was great. So just a bit of housekeeping for everyone here. This is not just a one-to-one interview here. We expect some engagement. So if you want to ask a question to Gunter, you can just raise your hand on the Zoom app, or you can type it in the chat window here, and I can speak it out to Gunter as well. So we want to keep this interactive, keep it informative. So just, yeah, either raise your hand, ask, or chat. Okay, so I want to move on. We can talk forever on each event here, but I want to direct my next chat to Rita. So just a bit of introduction to who Rita is. She's a world authority in high performance in the 110, 100, and 400 meter hurdles, especially with technique and preparation strategy. She's formerly South Africa head hurdles coach, and she's also the coach to Olympic hurdlers and mentor coaches from around the world. So Rita, welcome again. Thank you. So you've had a busy 2 days, because you had both the women's 100 meter hurdles, and you have the 400 meter hurdles for men and women. So just overall thoughts, how's that going on any of your athletes, any of people that you're sort of coaching going?
I think that in the 400 meter hurdles women, Wenda Nell from South Africa went through to the semi-final, and she was fortunate that she was with Femke Bol in a heat, and it was one of the slowest heats, and she went through with the slowest time. But you know, some you gain, some you lose, and it's lucky girls with 54.7 didn't go through. So yes, I don't think there were any surprises. And as far as that is concerned, time-wise, I think that Delilah Muhammad is brilliant at the moment with her technique, and we know the rivalry between her and Sydney McLaughlin. And well, more thoughts after maybe the semi-finals on that. And as far as the women's hurdles, I don't think there were any surprises. It's nice to see that. Well, I was surprised to see that 13:02 took you through to the semi-final. And sometimes in some of the previous world champs or Olympic games, it's never been like that. You had to run at least a 12:8 something to go through. But as you've just said previously, these are conditions that with COVID and not all athletes choose to go to, even if they did qualify. And so, yes, I don't think there is going to be surprisingly different faces in the final. I don't think athletics work that way. I mean, you perform and I'm glad for the people who can go there and run well and experience the whole Olympic dream and whatever. I mean, I was fortunate enough to coach there, to be in there, and my own daughter has been at the Athens Olympics. So it is a dream and it's wonderful, but I don't think any surprise is going to come. As we'll mention about the 400 hurdles, men and women, it's not the place now. We'll talk about that later, about the semi-final. But I think everybody's got their favorites. I've got mine, and I think I've got reasons for that, but I hope they come true.
No, that's great. I think we're all have our favorites here as well too, and I think it's going to be really good competition. So I'm looking forward to the hurdles. So anything? Oh, I think Frank, you have a question.
Yeah, just a quick one for Rita. I mean, for I guess like many people looking at the run into these Olympic Games, we've had 2 world records. And in my simple mind, I'm thinking that anybody who goes into any final here thinking that they shouldn't be going for a world record are going to be falling by the wayside. But Rita, from your experience, how do you see that when we come into an Olympic game? To what extent is there just a little bit of a margin for safety there and understanding the competition as opposed to going for the time?
Can I make a comparison with South Africa's only gold medal so far in the swimming, with the 200-meter freestyle, where Schumacher, our girl who won in a world record. I mean, she only was concerned about where she finished in the end, and that was first. She only afterwards realized that it was the time and it was a world record. So what I think is that for the Olympics, the winning is so important, that the placement, that I think that the world record, if it's going to come in a very hard race, it's going to be second to coming first, but it's going to be most probably be there. But I don't think any person is going to go in the race and say, I'm going there for the world record. I think my opinion is, and my experience is that they're all going to go and it's going for the gold. If the time then comes with it, fantastic. But you don't want to have the world record and get the silver, because you were concentrating on the world record, because it might even happen that both of them break the world record in both events, 400 hurdles, men and women. My opinion.
Thank you. Got that. Yep.
Okay, just letting people in here. So what do you think the biggest challenges are going to be right now in the next few days, especially for the hurdlers? Rita, is there any big challenges you think the hurdlers will have, other than, or is it just another Olympic track meet? I think any COVID issues are going to be challenging? Or...
Sorry, was that directed to me?
Yeah, just for you or anyone else wants to answer. Just want to know, like, because I mean, COVID is obviously a big factor here.
Yep, I totally agree. I mean, if you look at the diamond leagues, the European athletes, I think, had the advantage of that. Whereas the American athletes, if they qualified for the Olympics, they didn't travel in Europe, or I don't think they were allowed by whoever the rules set the rules. So I think it's very important to note that after the American trials, I didn't see Benjamin or one of the girls run another 400-meter hurdles. Although Carsten ran another race after his record, and he ran a 47:04. So yes, I think maybe in this case, because the Diamond League is in maybe the majority of races are in Europe, some of the European athletes had an advantage. It's difficult with COVID, I understand, and it's different for everybody. But in the end of the day, they all line up and they start, whether it's 30 degrees or 35 degrees, they're all going to start in the same conditions. And they had the same time to prepare, although it's different. Unfortunately, that is sometimes between brackets. It's whether you win or you lose.
No, perfect. We got a couple of questions here. So we got a question from Terry Finisterre. Terry, can you unmute and ask Rita a question?
Yeah, actually, I just wanted to contribute to the response to Frank's question regarding, do you go for the medal or do you go for the record? And I had a conversation earlier this year with Ryan Krauser, and that was after he broke the world indoor record. And he was saying that, and his situation from 2019 where he set a PB and then placed second. And so I asked him, what are his thoughts about setting a world record at the Olympics? And he said, listen, this priority is to go out there, get the gold medal. If the record comes at the Olympics, great. If it doesn't, and he just happens to throw further than the next guy, then that's all good. And you look at today's competition with the discus throw, and as we heard earlier, it's just about going out there and being able to do better than the people that you're up against. So, thinking about records is really difficult, I think, at any level of competition, but I would imagine especially at a meet, as prestigious as the Olympics.
No, that's absolutely correct there, Terry. Dalton has a question I want to talk to as well, but go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Well, let's be honest, this Olympics is the most pressure on any athlete, any Olympic athlete. And the most important thing about is sticking to your plan, your own personal plan. I've been where I've been sick and I've not been able to stay with my team and isolate in 1998 when I won the European silver medal, jumping the same height as Arto Partica. It's all about keeping your mind, keeping focused. And what I've done to keep on top of things is visualize. And I did a little workout. So when I went to that competition, I always had that visual preparation of going out, because there's a time to do and then you execute. And there's a time when you're thinking, that's down to training. An athlete feels, a coach sees. Now, there's certain athletes that I train alongside, Colin Jackson. Colin Jackson was an amazing athlete. He can come out and actually run the world record in training and go out and get ready. So it depends on the athlete, knowing yourself. I could actually, if anyone knows me, could get myself ready and come out in a competition. I've opened in 1997 at the height of 2 meters 32 on my first attempt. The main reason it was my strategy, because I had a little niggle, and I did, after about 4 jumps, I had a problem. So I wanted to put myself in that position to compete and be competitive for a medal. So that's what I believe I had to do. Climatizing, which is very interesting. When I had the Commonwealth Games, at home, I trained in night. So I prepared ahead. So I was climatizing before I went to the games. So there's things that you need to do for experience. You speak to other people and you take on board and be ahead. I prepare to prepare. Yeah, so that's just my experience and said, so it is a very challenging moment. This year, postpone a year and going out there to compete to the best of your ability. And I think most athletes and coaches are going to be challenged what presents itself. People's not testing themselves properly through COVID. So is anyone sending their team, let's say a day or 2 days before and making sure we see they test themselves? It's like saying someone to take a drug test and say, come back in 2 hours time and bring a bottle. No, COVID is a life. It's not taking illegal substance in your body.
No, that's a good point, Dalton. And just my apologies, I didn't introduce Dalton properly. So for those who don't know who Dalton is, he's a former European indoor high jump gold medalist, best of 2.37 meters. His outdoor best is 2.36 meters. And now he's a high performance coach across several sports in technical aspects in power, speed power, and anything with vertical lift. So Dalton's been there as an athlete. He coaches now. So it's great to have your input. So I want to get a lot of questions here, which is good. So Michael Bennett, you had your hand up for a while. I apologize. So Michael, was there a question to Rita or Dalton or even Terry's comments or Frank's comments?
I was looking for a comment, actually. one thing I know that this past year, it definitely been very challenging for a lot of athletes, a lot of coaches. We have all that's been going on with COVID-19, especially in the United States here. A lot of the actual facilities have been closed. And even now, coming down to 2021, even some of the normal facilities that would be used, even for training, are still closed. So even now to today, some of the actual facilities that you would normally use are not having to be changed to go to grass or still on street training. At the same time, I know it's been very challenging for a lot of athletes this past year, even coaches. And one of the things that's been challenging is dealing with some of the anti-doping policies, where unfortunately some of the situations have been, for some of the athletes, unfair or very stringent when they've had really tough doping controls that have caught and had athletes that have not actually failed drugs tests or had no intention to cheat or to violate rules. Like I call it in the net of the sport, trying to maintain really a lot of the stringent and cleanness and purity of the sport. And then even going down to Olympics now, you do have a lot of athletes that are competing at a very high level, but it definitely is challenging when you are not able to have the normal civilization, Olympic Village, and things like that. So it's definitely going to be unique Olympics. Some athletes have done truly amazing, even with all the challenges that they have been faced with. But unfortunately, I think this year and really the past 2 years really has been challenging, where a lot of athletes were not able to perform at the level that they would normally would. Other than some athletes were not able to even to go to Tokyo 2020 this year regarding the whole COVID-19 pandemic. So definitely look forward to seeing what the athletes do this year, but also looking for the COVID-19 pandemic to really kind of come to a close, then to see the sport make some changes in the coming years to really make it fair for all the athletes, and not to have athletes that are trying to perform at a high level and to do well to get caught up in some of the goals to have a clean sport. We know we've had many athletes in the past where they actually intentionally have cheated and have taken steroids or other anti-doping, other performance-active drugs. But it seems like now there are a number of athletes that have been caught up when there was no intention there. And I think we, as a sport and as kind of coaches and as administrators in the sport, really have to see how can we do both. Really ensure that athletes that are doing well and that are competing clean are there, and then other athletes that have tried to cheat and are intentionally going out there, they're being caught and pushed out the sport. So things we got to work on.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything we said is rock solid. I 100% agree. I just hope that when we're watching the news, we're actually forgetting about the COVID and just focusing on the purity of the sport. Frank, you had your hand up for a while. Do you want to chime in on something?
Okay, yeah, just very quickly. I don't want people to think that I was being trivial when I suggested what I was asking, what was your focus out there? Let me start to underpin my question with the following. I don't know if any of you have read the book by Bill Walsh, the legendary NFL coach, where he said, look after the performance and the result looks after itself. And that's really where I was coming from here. Let me give you a conversation that happened between Ans Botha, Wade van Niekerk, and myself when I was the performance director for South Africa before 2012. He just had a fantastic performance in Beijing. And when we came home, we had a conversation about where we go from here. And the Olympics was coming up the next year. So I said, what are we looking for? Both Ans and Wade said, world record. I said, well, I'm really not sure if looking at the world record is the right target, because I'm pretty sure the other guys, mainly at that point from USA, are going to be looking at the same thing. So what would be a really impossible target? What would really frighten everybody to death? And so they both laughed, and Wade said 43 seconds. Now, actually, that was the end of my input to the entire conversation, because after that, Ants and Wade focused on how do we get to 43 seconds. My input at that point was very simple. Listen, you've just got to go through in 20.5 and come home in 22.5, and you got it. And again, we all laughed, because that doesn't sound a very easy thing to do. But that's precisely what they focused on. So when they went into the Olympics final, what they focused on was the performance, because they realized if they get that performance, the result was going to take care of itself. That's really the point I'm trying to make here, is what your target is in terms of performance. So then we come to Gunter's world and the world of tactics. Long time ago, as when I was the head coach with UK Athletics, we were in, I think it was Toronto for the World Indoors. And in the 800 meters, we had an athlete called Tommy McKean. And Tommy was winning his races off the front. He was the fastest man on the planet indoors that year in 800 meters. And he spoke to me just before the final. He said, Frankie, I'm going to catch them out. I said, what do you mean? He said, I'm not going to take the lead. I'm going to follow, because they'll be expecting me to take the lead. I said, oh, hold on a second, son. Let's get this quite clear. How many people in this race can run 144? There's only one. Who's that? It's me. If the race is run in 145, who could win it? Well, there's 3 people that could win it. If it's running 146, who could win it? Well, anybody could win it. So what are you going to do, son? I'll take it off the front. Because that, I think, is one of the fundamental things that I think a lot of athletes get wrong when they go in there. They can be so caught up in the nature of the immediate competition that their own performance goes out the window and they make themselves vulnerable. That's all I'm saying, folks. I'm not saying you have to break a world record every time, but you better make sure that the performance you deliver is going to be the best performance of your life in order for the win to happen. Now, I'm saying the best performance of your life, but I didn't always think that way. When Bill Sweetenham was the head coach for swimming, he and I had a good conversation about this exact topic. And he said, Frank, when you go into the Olympic arena, it has to be the best performance of your life. And I said, well, I don't know about that. Maybe it's the best performance of the season. He said, Frank, that's second best. And so since then, I'm afraid I'm to the right of Genghis Khan when it comes to this particular piece of opinion. I put performance to the performance, and the result takes care of itself. That's all I'm saying. But I can be completely wrong, folks.
No, that makes all sense. I want to talk about the 100 meters, the 800 and 5,000 before 7:30 my time. But there's a question for Gunter, and he had his hand up. The question, Gunter, was, is Joshua Cheptegei running the 5,000 meters?
100% yes, and be sure that this time the implementation of the tactic will look better, because he came out of the race of 10,000 and was quite disappointed. And I had impression when I spoke with both athletes, and especially with Joshua, that he will go into that race to prove himself that he can do better. I would like to touch this point of world record and performance. We have to consider the endurance events in this environment of 88 humidity, and it can even be hotter in the evening than 26 degrees. We don't have a need to discuss about world records. It's pretty impossible to run in the endurance events 5,000 or longer for world record. When COVID hit Uganda and I came into this whole COVID situation, I actually came from Patiala, India to Uganda and found myself with the airport closed after 2 days, and I stayed 10 months in Uganda. The good point was that the same happened to the coach of Joshua Cheptegei. Don't forget, I'm not the coach. I work with the coach, I mentor the coach. So Adi Rita was also in Uganda, and for him, he was stuck in Uganda because normally he would not stay there for the whole year. And the beauty of it was being now permanent with Joshua and the team has been extremely positive because being frustrated of no Olympics, they decided to change the goals and go for world records. And you all know the outcome. 5 kilometer, 5,000 meter and 10,000 meter. And this would not have been possible without COVID, because COVID was the reason that Adi was there permanently, that I was in Uganda, and also in the situation of the endurance event training in our high altitude training camp in 2,500 meter, there was no restriction concerning the training because the athletes would train in free nature up on empty roads or pathways. They could train normally. So replacing the Olympics in 2020 with world records was thanks to COVID or because of COVID. And I think this has helped a lot for the development of Joshua, also looking in long term, looking to Paris 24, where he wants to profit from this under distance speed in 10 and 5K.
So before we move to the 100 meters, let's just finish up the 5,000 meter women's. So what are your thoughts? Do you think Hassan's doing too much, 3 events? And what do you think about the finals with Sergey and Hassan in the 5,000 meter finals? Do you think it's, yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that Hassan doing 3 out of 3, I am already pretty impressed when athletes can do the double with 5 and 10 like we are planning. 3 events, sometimes less can be more. Being a distance coach, I would say you can be a top world-class athlete. Let's look at 1500 meter. I was very much, sorry, 5000 meter man. I was very much surprised that the strongest European athlete will not compete. Ingebrigtsen is not on the list for 5000. We are not unhappy about this, I tell you frankly, but I would have expected that he do for 1500 and 5000. So in the case of our Dutch athlete, I'm impressed. I hope that this is not too much because I think this is quite a high load. And I repeat it again, the weather conditions are not good. And this is also for 1500 meter upwards.
Okay, this is great. Thank you. I see we have another panelist join, which I want to get to after the 100 meter talk, and that's Danie Cornelius. So I will have you speak in a few minutes, but let's about long jump especially because that's your expertise. But so let's get back to the 100 meters. So we had a Jamaican sweep. We had you know, the big disappointment of, you know, Dina Asher-Smith. So Dalton, I'll direct it at you since you're UK. And do you think the trials are too close to the games? What do you think could be done differently? I mean, she hurt herself at the trials in Manchester 4 weeks ago. What are your thoughts on her injury and we improve on this not happening again on anybody?
Absolutely. And I think Dina knew the challenge she had ahead. So I think that she could have pushed herself, and that's the kind of thing you need to do. It's easier to run like in America, challenging the caliber of athletes over there, and the depth, and in Jamaica as well. We've seen that. So it's similar when you get into a major championship, like in Olympics, because you have that experience. Being like a top jumper in England myself, I was quite out there by myself. So it's quite hard when you go into that environment, you know, and it's really like the mental discipline to stick to your training program and having that right gauge where you're at. So I knew it was a tall order for Dina because she pulled out of the meeting Gates said. And for me going into the Olympics, it was really seeing how Dina was. Yes, she done really well in the earlier meet and done well and you know, beat Shelley Han and a few others in a cold day. So it's down to the athlete and what Dina has to go to the next level now. So I think really it's been sad for her not to go out there because she had ability. But you can see early these girls, I think they prepared for Dina and she's a raw talent and they're new. And you can see the standard of sprinting in the women's sprints, they raised their game. I mean, when you look at their technique, I mean, they're running like men, they say, the top 4 girls that I saw. And that's the same top 4 girls I thought would have been in that position. And it showed about the pickup. What I mean, that technique was closest to flojo and the way they were running, the rhythm, the contact, what they were coming off the ground. Elaine this year seemed a bit more of herself because every time when I saw her in the past where she has been, she seemed a bit agitated, where this time she seemed quite settled. So I knew it was open and it was going to be a great run, and it proved that it wasn't a fluke because she broke the Jamaican record, Olympic record. So it's open to anyone, and we could always talk about world records and best time, but for me, if I could win the Olympic Games and jump in 2:10, I wouldn't mind. I just want to be the Olympic champion, whatever it takes. So it's down to the athlete really, and being aware of their challenges and how you handle adversity, which we know that's what it's about. Because there's going to be so many challenges out there that the athletes have to go through, and that goes down to the coach. Sometimes has to play a huge part because you're like the parent, the mother, the father, and keeping this athlete. Because once you go there and you go through the season, there's always to go back to the drawing board. But when you're there, and no matter how you feel, this is it. It's here. Doesn't matter if you feel good on a day or you don't feel good. You have to go out there, and it's the right performance that what you need. Some people can learn as they're going along, and bring the right level and prepare. And some people have to gun for teeth, just keep running hard through the finals. So it depends really who you are, what you're like as a person, and that coach to really press the right button that can fight the athlete.
Yeah, that's true. But it did take 10:61 to win a gold medal today for the women. So yeah, this is big time. So okay, any thoughts on the 100 meters before we move on? I think it was done and dusted. Jamaican sweep, really not shocking, but still was something. Frank, maybe a quick.
Yeah, just a quickie. I mean, okay. I'm a dinosaur, old school, and you kind of look. You see what you see. I don't want to. I'm not up to all the analysis and stuff after the event, but when I was watching Dina, as obviously she was our poster girl going into these games, when I was watching Dina's run in the first round. There's a picture that you have of an athlete sprinting tall, sprinting in control, in full height and so on. There's another picture when you know something's wrong, when you almost get the impression that they're slightly seated, right? They're not getting the full length of drive. And whereas she could fly off the blocks, once she was at full speed, that seated position was there. Now, I had no idea until she announced later on today that she'd actually had an injury as serious as it was. But when people are sprinting and they are conscious of the hamstring, they will always drop their weight to protect the hamstring. And so when everybody was talking in BBC afterwards about she was going to step up to another level, I really wasn't sure about that. I mean, she's brilliant. She's a brilliant young athlete. She's brilliantly coached by John. She's got a fantastic strength and conditioning and physio team around about her. But she also mentioned something, Jimson, I don't know if you picked up on this, that she wanted to keep the seriousness of the situation secret. Well, what that did immediately, by denying the world the opportunity to see that, to hear what the problem was, expectation was crazy, right? It was clear she couldn't step up, but the world thought she was going to. And so we kind of get this feeling of I mean, what is secret to the athlete at the end of the day? I mean, the fans own the athlete at the end of the day. That's what the whole appeal is about. And unfortunately, the world we're in today in sport is as much about entertainment, sadly in my mind, as it is about performance. And I think we get to a point where we actually end up juggling between the two things, our image versus our performance. And I think that's a dangerous ground to go into for coaches. It's a dangerous ground to go into for athletes. And so I think coming back to my point, Jimson, is that as coaches, when you're watching your athlete in flight, when you're watching your athlete out there, stand back and give your professional observation a chance. Dalton, you'll remember that from the times that we worked together. There was going to be no cameras, no videos. You, as a coach, you have to be 100% on your observation skills. Otherwise, you'll miss the point and the athlete will be sacrificed.
Yeah, great. This is great. Thank you. We have another panelist. Hang on. Can I? Who's?
This is Azhar from India. Can I add something?
Yes, I've another panelist to introduce, but yeah, if you can add quickly. Yes.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone from India. I'm Mohammad Zaruddin. Quickly, I just want to add one thing. As sir, my senior coach and scientist, Mr. Frank Dick was mentioned, it is true. As I'm from India, I'm from youngest coach. I see this Olympics. You can take as a result what he told, the mental health, the well-being of the athlete, that serious decision, the hamstring injuries, how she handled it. One more thing, the gymnastics, I think famous gymnastics, Simboni, the mental health well-being, she withdraw from the Olympics. It is a huge decision. So that kind of space as a coach is, we have to give the athletes to. We have to discuss not only what Sir said is 100% true, the observation of the athletes, and moreover, the mental health, the well-being, they have to take a right decision at the time of the biggest event. Not just we have to perform incredible of fans or pressure. They have to take care of the well-being, and the coaches should be, an observation should be a correct question where they can share everything to the coaches. So that is the most important point.
Yeah,
Frank, it is a most valuable thing. The coaches and athletes' well-being relationship. It has to be taken to the consideration.
Okay, Joseph.
So that is what.
Joseph, you'll have the next topic I want to bring up on the long jump.
Yeah. That was a fantastic one.
Joseph, I need to introduce.
That was a fantastic one.
Yeah.
That is a fantastic one. What Frank Dick sir told us. Okay. We have to take into the consideration, and I think I learned it from the many lecturers like Frank Dick sir, Mr. Gunter Lange, who before Tokyo Olympics starts, Mr. Gunter Lange explained what exactly would happen for the distance runners in thermal regulations between for the middle distance and the sprinters. The performance between middle distance and sprinters and long distance athletes would differ. That's the main thing. It is happening right now. I see this Olympics in a situation in COVID-19. Performance it won't be a major impact, but the medal contenders will be for favor to the athletes. I think that is what I just want to add to. Sorry for.
No problem. Yeah, we got another half hour left. I want to make sure our last panelist speaks. So that's great. Thanks for your input. I think everyone agrees with you as well. So yeah, we have Danie Cornelius. Danie, welcome. Thank you. So he is head of Tux Athletics at University of Pretoria and a high performance coach in the long and triple jump. You are now a manager of athletics for the South Africa Relays program. So welcome. Thank you for attending.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Okay, so,
it's an honor.
So two things I want to talk to you about is long jump and relays. So let's talk the long jump. Anybody here watch the long jump? Anybody watch Jamaica's Tajay Gale compete on one leg. After his first jump, he hurt himself. Second jump, he was wrapped up in a knee brace. Yeah, what's your thoughts on that? When is enough enough? When do you stop, or is it the Olympic Games?
That's a problem. You know what? People want to come and participate and they want to win medals. Now, if you take Gale, he came in 2019. He was the outsider for a medal at the World Championships in Doha. And he actually came and he won it. And he jumped a massive PB. I think now there's a lot of pressure on him. Also, not on him, but the whole, his country, his fellow athletes, everybody wants him to win. And I think that's also a problem. I actually saw the jump. I was watching it, and it looks like he slipped. And he injured his left leg. And he fell very, very badly. And I was quite surprised to see him run and actually jump again. And when he did his 814, 814 that he qualified with, he missed the automatic qualifying by 1 centimeter. I was actually very surprised that he actually did take that jump. But maybe it's not serious, but he was limping after the jump as well. So I'm not sure how serious it is. And at the end of the game, end of the day, a person has to decide, and the coach also, is it worth to have a career-ending injury to have a career-ending injury, or you say to your athlete, listen, there's going to be another World Championships next year. Don't take your chances, because he might injure himself severely tomorrow without even getting a medal, and then his whole career is gone. So that's a very, very fine balancing act always for me. And the coach is also is there to guide an athlete as well, to say, listen, you can't do this. But he did actually very well. A jumper 814 with an injured leg, I was very surprised and very, I was very excited to see him also doing that.
Right. Okay. So what do you think on the finals? Any favorites? Anybody you're coaching or rooting for on your side?
Well, the guy that actually surprised me today was Echeverria from Cuba. I mean, he was out for a long while. If you recall, in 2019, he wasn't even participating, or he was participating, but he wasn't. He was a hot favorite. He didn't win. And he actually came and he jumped at 850 today, which to me was very good. The way that he jumped it, the way he executed it, and it was an easy jump. It wasn't a very, very hard jump. I think he is a hot favorite, without any doubt. The rest of the medals, if Gale is okay, he might do it. And then also Harrison, the long jumper, high jumper, that's a very unique combination as well. That's not something you see often. I always encourage my athletes that you must look at the world rankings to see if an athlete does a double. I always say to them, you don't see a jumper doing long jump. Now he's now making my whole motivation for not doing high jump and long jump. He's actually he is ripping that apart. But he's also a very good guy. I jumped at 847 this year, and I think he can also do very, very well. And he can also be amongst the medalists in the high jump, and that will be very interesting to see. If we've never had, as far as I can ascertain, we've never had a long jump and high jump medalist in the same Olympic Games. That's going to be a very unique double as well, if you can do that. So there are a few guys, but I think basically is that I think the Cuban is going to make it. He's a guy that I would favor. He's a hard favorite, and it will take something very silly from him and not to make it. I think he learned from his mistakes in 2009, and I think he's going to be our Olympic champion.
Okay, that's great. Anybody have a question for Danie? I mean, long jump question, triple jump question, anything technical? Yeah, Dalton has a question.
I'd just like to comment something to Frank. Frank, the Lions are losing 24-9. So just for your kind information, sir.
Okay, pleasure.
Yeah, I do think that Harrison is going to get a medal in the high jump and long jump. And there's a wild card to get a gold as well. But I definitely do believe he's definitely going to be a medalist in the high jump and the long jump. Put that out there.
Okay, great. And let's talk about.
He's got a great vertical lift. Reminds me a bit of Javier Sotomayor, the way he takes off at the side. And I've seen him jump, 8:45 and come back, within 2 hours or hour and a half and jump to, 36 is jumped this year. And the thing about it, normally you find high jumpers when they jump, they're carrying. He jumps up and go as a PB. Very rare that you find someone doing that. So it'd be good to see him. And I think he's a very tough competitor as well. It's just really to see the competitions, what he's done leading up to that, because he's had really a very hard season. So if he's still, you know, up there.
I also watched him in the NCAAs when he was participating in NCAAs, and he also won both in the NCAAs. He was actually doing very, very well. Like I said, that was a very unique thing, and I think he's one of the guys. I can tell you now, if Echeverria does something wrong, he's actually a guy that can win. And like I said, he can also win a medal in the long jump. The high jump, I know Bashir is our favorite. I mean, so I don't think he will win, but anything can happen. We know athletics is one of those strange events, or not events, sporting codes, that anything can happen. On the day, he can be a double gold medalist for all we know. But I also think he's going to be a medalist in both events. I'm pretty sure of that.
Okay, so we have like 10 minutes left here. So let's talk about the mixed relays. I know it's not everyone's favorite event. I personally felt it was exciting. It's more exciting when they mix them up, men and women, so they're chasing each other. But it was good to see. I thought it was good. I think the American situation in the heats was a bit bizarre, how they didn't line up in the proper zones. I think, you know, I'm Canadian, so we know what hockey sticks are. You always know that you always line up with a hockey stick pointing inward. So I was a bit surprised, but anyway, it was good to see. And I think it was good to get some, you know, some changes and equality, and I felt it was exciting. I was rooting for Holland. I was kind of surprised they actually had, you know, Femke Bol run the 400 final, or in this final, and they have to run the hurdles. So maybe, I don't know, Rita, you want to chime in on, would you let your 400-meter hurdler run their mixed relays between your heat and semifinal?
I think it is a difficult question, I think, for many people. But if I look at her preparation and what she ran and some of the training sessions that she posted, is that she was, I think, physically preparing for it. And if they did well in the semi, she would obviously, or in the heats, she would have run the final. And it's a tough lady. It's a very tough lady, that. And she had a different preparation, more towards the 400. She ran a lot of 400s and only started running in the Diamond League's 400 hurdles. So I think maybe she is well prepared for it. I think they had it in mind all the time, and that is why she ran so many races so close together. She ran like 3 races within 5 days, and she recovered well enough. So I don't know. I think she's she comes from a 400-meter background. She did a lot of volume, and I think she's allowed to recover. I think she'll be fine. I think she'll be fine. I don't know if I would have the guts to do that with one of my athletes, but I think she's made from tough stuff, and her coach is doing well with her. She's young, and you know, if you're that old, you've got a lot of guts going for you.
That's great.
That's my opinion.
Yeah, I think on the EACA website, athleticscoaching.eu, we actually interviewed Laurent and the Dutch national team as well. So for those who have not seen the interview, yeah, please register on the website, and it's episode 2 of our series. So that was very interesting. Okay, one last, a couple of hands up here. One last event we didn't cover was the 800 meters. I think Gunter covered it very briefly, but 800 is brutal, right? You have all these heats, top 3 go, and 6 fastest, and 3 fastest, I think. And if you're not in a good heat, you know, and you come in 4th, you may be in trouble. And I think, you know, Canadian, I was rooting for Melissa Bishop, and she didn't advance. We have Les Gramantic on this call. Les, as my favorite Calgary coach out there. Les, what are your thoughts on the Athletics Canada and the Canadians on the 800 meters? Les, you're on mute. Can you unmute and give me your thoughts on? You're on mute. You have to. Bottom left, mute. So Les is a high performance coach for Athletics Canada in the combined events.
Okay, finally managed to unmute myself. I'm not involved in the national program that much anymore, hardly at all. So I can't comment totally on what's happening. I think our biggest problem this year was inability to travel, inability to leave the country, and the difficulties of coming back. Those of you who managed to spend or stay in the United States and train there in the college areas, especially down south, then they benefited from it. Those who couldn't were basically a disaster. I had two athletes could have made the team. Neither of them could train anywhere. So, Athletics Canada is not really involved in that kind of part anymore. They just run the show and hope that everybody's going to do well on their own.
Yeah, no, it was, it's the Olympic Games, things happen. If you get boxed in 800 meters, you can be in trouble. You may feel good for 700, but then your legs just die and there's nothing left in the tank. Seen that time and time again. Let's get some thoughts on 800 meters. Maybe Terry, I see you have your hand up. Anything on 800 meters you want to chime in on? Terry?
Yeah, sorry. Sorry, my audio settings just went awry. A couple of quick comments. I'm really excited. I'm from the Caribbean, as you can probably tell. I'm really excited about seeing Natoya Gould in the 800 and the performances that she's been putting in. Somebody I've watched since 2008, 2009 at the Carifta Games here in St. Lucia. So I'm really thrilled to see what she's accomplishing. In terms of the relays, the mixed relays, Jimson, to me, it's nice. But I'm afraid that, there's a sense of like kitschiness or, of novelty. And part of that is because of the timing and the arrangement as far as, the accommodations that have to be made for COVID, and the fact that you don't necessarily have the best of the best running it. So you don't necessarily, for a casual fan, it is what it is. But for somebody who's into athletics, you mentioned Femke Bol and the fact that you're surprised to see her there. There are not many big names in the mixed relay. So that, I think, kind of takes away from it for, real hardcore track and field people. What I wanted to ask, though, and that wasn't really what I wanted. What I wanted to ask is, I don't know if anybody already watched Thea Lafond from the Commonwealth of Dominica in the women's triple jump. Her performance, 14.60, a lifetime best for her national record. She previously had done 14.38 2 years ago. I think she's had a 1450 wind aided earlier this year. But really, just a massive performance from her. And her first jump, she came in there in qualifying, one jump, 14.60, and was second behind Rojas in qualifying. So I just wondered if anybody else had watched that and had any thoughts on what the young lady from Dominica, Thea Lafond, was able to do yesterday in qualifying.
Yeah, I see Gunter has hand up. Gunter, you want to pitch in on what Terry said?
Jimson, my hand was quite a long time up for the 800 meters. And I'm happy that eventually we came back, because I think this Olympics, it started already in Doha, the trend, but this Olympics, the woman 800 meter on August 3rd will really be special. We have USA, Jamaica, Great Britain, Ethiopia, 4 athletes who perform 156. And if I look at this, I'm especially pleased. I'm not pleased that the world champion from Doha is already out. Halima will not be in the final, but I look forward to see this amazing 4 athletes who have a level of 156 making it out in between them. And I want to put it in a perspective. Doha was the first competition where, thanks to the intervention of World Athletics Sport Medical Department, we had a level playing field in the 800 meter woman. So it seems that this has encouraged now again more athletes to go into, more female athletes to go into the 800 meters, because I see this as a very positive neutral. I also observed in this race that from the group of hyperandrogen athletes, we have only one, I would call it survivor, Francine from Burundi. You have seen her in the 5,000 meter. She was second in her heat, but unfortunately she stepped on the line. I saw the picture and was disqualified. So I spoke with her and she told me that she has put all her efforts after no more being able to run the 800 now into the 5,000. And I give big respect to the athlete that they don't give up and they want to find, they want to compete, in this case in the 5,000. So my suggestion would really for all of those who are interested in the middle distance, the 800 meter woman on August 3rd will be something special, something outstanding.
No, that's great. I think everyone's excited for this, and this is only day. Well, this is day 2 technically at track and field, and we're going to wrap up in a few minutes here. But before I do, I just want to remind everybody that this Zoom session, this call is not the only one going on. We also have the Oceania group doing one. We have the Asia one, and on the call here we have Richie Mercado here from the NACAC-TIFCA, or the North America, Caribbean, and Central America. Richie, you want to say a few words on when your groups are? You have a session as well going on. And I think the last day on Sunday, we're going to merge them into one maybe. Richie?
Yeah, thanks. And thanks for doing this. I forgot about it and I got a notice and got on. We had a good first one before the track and field started, but we have one on August 4th. It's a little hard if you're in Europe. It's at 5 p.m. It's 6 p.m. New York time, Eastern Standard Time. So I know that's about midnight over where a lot of you all are, or maybe even later. But the final one will be August 8th, and that will be at noon our time, 1 p.m. Eastern time. So that's about 6 or 7 or 8 in Europe. We're still scrambling, trying to get some people on there. We may have Harry Mara on there, and Harry is actually in Indonesia. He hasn't gone over to Tokyo. He has a hard time because they have to go to the track really early because it's so hot there. We will have Nelio Mora from Brazil, the jumps coach, who will be back in Brazil by then. And we may have 1 or 2 other coaches on there. So, but anyway, we'd love to have people on there. Registration info went out from Frank. So thanks for doing this one and thanks for including us.
Yeah, and this is every day from now until Sunday. So yeah, we had a lot of people sign up for. So I think as we get closer to the big events, I think tomorrow night will be a huge event because men's 100's on. But I think because I was at the London Olympics in 2012, and I saw the momentum build up. On day 1, it got really quiet. And then by the end of the finals, the last day, it was just one giant madhouse party. So I think this was good today. I really appreciate everyone joining. Michael, do you have anything urgent, or can I wait till tomorrow? Can you join us tomorrow? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
We'll be here tomorrow.
Yeah. We have like 5 minutes. Frank, so we got like 4 minutes left. Want to close up on anything? Final thoughts as usual.
If I can do a sandwich here, a quick question to Richie, and then if you can bring me in towards the end, at the very end. Richie, bit of an elephant in the room here, mate. When I was brought up as a student, my principal lecturer in track and field said, every 4 years, the greatest track and field team in the world comes out of California for the Olympic Games. The second greatest team in track and field in the world stays in California. Now, it doesn't take a genius to work out things do not look quite like that so far. I know there's a long time to go yet, but when I looked at the trials, I thought, my goodness, United States are going to sweep the board here. Are there any fears at the back of your mind? Any concerns about the American team at the moment?
No, and actually, I'm just catching up on delay link this morning because I missed this morning stuff. So, well, I know one of those that Gunter talked about is from New Jersey, a thing Mo, who I had on a team a couple years ago, and she's looking pretty good. And I'm from Texas, and there's some pretty good athletes here too. But overall, I think the team is, you know, I think always too, there's a lot of hype to that. I'm pretty much very devoted to the United States, but also an internationalist, and understand there are a lot of other good athletes out there. And a lot of times it's hype that we're going to win everything. And we're not always going to win everything for the people who really know track and field. I also think one last comment on that is that on the mixed relay, and I don't know what happened in the final yet. I'm watching that in a few minutes, but you know, I coach all age kids, and I have 6th grade kids who know at a track meet at 11 years old, we tell them where the marks are, and you know, and they should know those things. So I don't know if an actual official actually put her in the wrong spot, but you look around and you see 7 other athletes 20 meters behind you lining up, and you're there. You know, I don't know. That was bizarre to me. And apparently in the second heat, I saw somebody running back to right the last minute that apparently was the wrong mark. So maybe somebody was instructing wrong, but you know, you're a grown people, you should know where the marks are. Anyway, my comment on that.
Jimson, I was just going to say, I spoke to Rose Monday, the U.S. head coach, and she said, yes, the athlete was placed there by an official, and that's why they won their appeal and got back into the final. So it was a pretty easy ruling or appeal to make. So yeah, they knew they weren't in the right place, and one of the other teams was placed in the wrong place and then ran back, as you know, we just mentioned. So the Americans, yeah, they were in the wrong place, but they were put there by an official because it happened on the second changeover or the first changeover. So it was a strange place for it to happen.
It an official could do that at that level, but it must have happened. Yeah.
Okay, Jim.
That concludes our session. So first, before, I want to thank all the coaches who made this, especially the coaches who are in Tokyo. I know it's 3:30 in the morning now, so I appreciate all the input and the insight that you've given. Frank, some final thoughts on this and close up this call today for us, Frank?
Okay, well, thanks very much, James. What I really wanted to say is, I think you've done a fantastic job, mate. I think this has really been a fabulous introduction to this kind of concept. Thank you. Thank everybody who's joined in. A quick word for our South African friends. The Springboks beat the Lions 27-9 down in Cape Town today, so I know you'll be quite happy with that. We're not too happy in the UK, but that's the way it is. Jimson, I'm really looking forward to what you're going to be doing for the rest of this week, my friend. Thank you very much for stepping up for this. Superb job. Thanks, everybody else. Enjoy your track and field athletics this week, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow night.
Yeah. Please all join tomorrow, same time, same link. Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
It's been a wonderful session. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And tell your friends.
Yeah,
Thanks, guys.
Sterling, thank you.
Good job, James.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jameson. Thanks, Frank.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you,
See
Mr.
tomorrow.
Bye.
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 Hello.
Oh, there's the superstar, Constanza. How fantastic to see.